You've been told to think positive, to stay motivated, to believe in yourself, but nobody told you the truth that your brain, left to its own devices, is actually working against you. It's wired for survival, not success. It defaults to doubt, to fear, to comfort. And unless you deliberately rewire it, it will keep pulling you back to average, no matter how talented you are, no matter how badly you want more. So what do the people who actually break through do differently? They brainwash themselves. And before you close this video thinking that sounds manipulative or extreme, stay with me, because what I'm about to share might be the most honest thing anyone has ever told you about why you're not where you want to be yet. The word brainwashing has a dark reputation. We associate it with cults, with control, with someone stripping away your free will. But here's the psychological reality: your brain is already being washed every single day. By your environment, by social media, by the people around you, by the stories you heard growing up. The question was never whether your mind would be shaped. The question is who's doing the shaping. And most of us have spent our entire lives letting other people answer that question for us. Psychology shows that the human brain is profoundly malleable, a concept researchers call neuroplasticity. Your neural pathways are not fixed. They are living, changing structures that strengthen with repetition and weaken with neglect. Every thought you think carves a groove. Every belief you rehearse becomes a highway. And every habit you build deepens a channel that your behavior flows through automatically. This means the person you are right now is not the person you have to be. You are, at a biological level, changeable. And successful people figured out, consciously or not, how to use that against their own limitations. So let me walk you through exactly how I brainwashed myself to success, and how you can do the same. The first thing I did was challenge what I believed about myself. Not with affirmations, not with sticky notes on mirrors. I mean, really challenged it at the root. Because here's something most people never examine. The beliefs driving your life are not yours. They were handed to you before you were old enough to question them. Research in developmental psychology tells us that the core beliefs we carry about our worthiness, our capability, and our potential are largely formed before the age of 7 years old. You hadn't even figured out long division yet, and already your subconscious had drawn a map of who you were and what you deserved. Maybe you were told you weren't the smart one in the family. Maybe you failed at something early and decided you weren't the type of person who succeeds. Maybe someone you trusted communicated through words or silence that you weren't quite enough, and you believed them, because children always believe the adults in the room. That belief became a lens, and every experience you had after that, your brain filtered through it, finding evidence that confirmed the story, ignoring evidence that contradicted it. Psychologists call this confirmation bias, and it is one of the most powerful forces keeping people stuck. So, the first step in rewiring is this: you have to catch yourself in the act of believing. When you hear that voice that says, "I'm not ready," or "people like me don't do things like that," or "who am I to want this?" don't argue with it yet. Just notice it. Name it. Get curious about where it came from. Because once you see that the voice is not truth, it's just programming, you stop obeying it automatically. The second thing I did was flood my environment with new inputs. And this is where the brainwashing becomes literal. Research in social psychology, particularly the work around behavioral contagion, shows that we unconsciously absorb the mindsets, habits, and expectations of the people and environments we spend the most time in. Your peer group doesn't just influence your mood, it calibrates your sense of what's normal. If everyone around you is comfortable being mediocre, mediocrity starts to feel like the ceiling. Not because it is, but because proximity shapes perception. I started being ruthless about what I let in, not in a cold, isolating way, but intentionally. I changed what I listened to in the morning. I changed whose stories I consumed. I put myself, even just digitally at first, in rooms where people were doing the things I wanted to do, living the way I wanted to live. and something quiet but powerful happened. My sense of what was possible began to expand. Not overnight, gradually. The way water reshapes stone, not by force, but by consistency. Because here's what psychology confirms. Your brain cannot easily distinguish between a real experience and a vividly imagined or repeatedly observed one. The neural response is remarkably similar. So when you consistently expose yourself to possibility, to success, to evidence that the life you want is real and attainable, your brain starts to file that information as familiar. And we move toward what feels familiar. We sabotage what feels foreign, even when it's good. So make success feel familiar before it arrives. The third thing I did was make identity the strategy, not motivation. And this one changed everything. Most people try to change their behavior through willpower. They set a goal, they feel inspired, they push hard for a few weeks, and then the motivation fades and the old patterns rush back in. That's because they never changed who they believed they were. They were trying to graft new behavior onto an old identity, and the identity always wins. Psychology shows, particularly through the work of researchers studying habit formation and identity-based change, that behavior is downstream of belief. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your identity. So instead of asking, how do I get motivated to exercise? The question becomes, what does a healthy person do? Instead of, how do I make myself study? It becomes, this is what someone serious about their future does. You stop negotiating with yourself. The action becomes an expression of who you are, not a battle against who you aren't. I started asking myself one quiet question every day. What would the person I want to become do right now? Not the perfect version, not some impossible ideal, just the next version. The slightly more disciplined, slightly more courageous, slightly more focused version. And I started doing that thing. Small, imperfect, consistently. And with each action, the identity got a little more solid, a little more real, until one day, it wasn't a question I had to ask anymore. It was just who I was. The fourth thing, and perhaps the most underestimated, was learning to use repetition like a tool. Your subconscious mind learns through repetition. It doesn't respond to one powerful moment of insight. It responds to patterns. This is why trauma can be so persistent. It's not the single event that embeds it so deeply. It's the way the mind returns to it, replays it, reinforces it. And the same mechanism that keeps you stuck in pain can be consciously used to move you forward. Research on spaced repetition and mental rehearsal in sports psychology shows that athletes who mentally rehearse their performance vividly, repeatedly, in detail show measurable improvements comparable to physical practice. The brain is rehearsing. The pathways are being carved. This isn't mystical. This is neuroscience. So I began rehearsing the version of myself I was becoming, not in an escapist way. I wasn't using it to avoid reality. I was using it to prepare for one. Returning to the same thoughts, the same values, the same vision, not obsessively, but consistently. The way you return to a language you're learning. The way you return to a skill you're building. And over time, what felt forced became fluent. Now here's what I want you to take away from all of this. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not fundamentally limited by your personality, your past, your circumstances, or your neurology. What you are is shaped by inputs you didn't choose, stories you didn't write, environments you didn't design, and that shaping happened to you. But what you do with it from here, that's yours. That's the power that nobody can hand you and nobody can take away. Brainwashing yourself to success isn't about tricking your mind or denying hard realities. It's about becoming the conscious author of the story your brain is telling about you. It's about flooding yourself with better inputs, questioning inherited beliefs, anchoring your actions to your identity, and trusting that repetition, quiet, unglamorous, daily repetition is the most powerful force in human transformation. The people who succeed don't have more talent. They don't have cleaner circumstances. They have often without knowing the psychology behind it, learn to work with their mind instead of against it. And now you know how. If this video made you see yourself differently, even slightly, that shift is real. Hold on to it, come back to it, repeat it, because that's how this works. And if you want more of this, more honest, grounded insights into the psychology of who you are and who you're becoming, subscribe, because that's exactly what this channel is for. I'll see you in the next one.